I'm Jean-Claude Vaxan. I am the founder and CEO of Foundry Gyms in London. I also run jcv Consulting, which is a mentorship group and support network for independent gym owners. At the start, at least in my experience, leadership was about being at the front. We're going on this journey, follow me, and it was a leading by doing. I think as you come into multiple sites and your time and attention and energy is spread, you need to firstly allow other people to take the reins in certain areas. And I think one of the other areas, or one of the other things that I'm learning and relearning, is that at the start, I think one of the big things about leadership is seeing something early, having a solution, implementing it today, ready for tomorrow, and that's how you move quickly. I think as things scale, as things get bigger, sometimes you've got to sit, you recognise the thing early, you've got to sit in it for a bit, let it percolate, and then make change. So changes happen, at least in your mind, a little bit more slowly, and you've got to change your style accordingly. I'd say the most important leadership lesson I've learned is that you can't do it all on your own. At the start, I'm naturally high drive, low trust character, so I want to move quickly. I think most people are idiots until proven otherwise, and I used to think that's what leadership was about. Move quickly, move fast, run through brick walls, lead by example. And I think what I've realised is that sort of high octane, fast paced version of leadership isn't for everybody, and sometimes it can alienate people and because they can't keep up, or it lacks clarity. Probably speak for most leaders is that I'm still working on my leadership skill set every day. I'm still high drive, low trust. I still want to move quickly. I still get frustrated that we individually and collectively don't move fast enough on some things. I'll still say stuff like we need to improve the speed of table to floor, gym floor. It still drives me crackers that things aren't talked about today and done tomorrow. I'm getting better, but because firstly I recognise it, and secondly I'm able now to sort of sit in it and take a pause. But it's definitely something it's still definitely a work in progress. My biggest shortcoming as a leader is definitely I want to move too quickly. And actually what I've learned and what I'm relearning is that speed is good, but speed can also kill. It's very easy if you move too quickly, have too many ideas, and you're too bullish about the speed of implementation. It's very easy to leave people behind. I think leadership's situational. I think there's been times in the business where it's needed me in certain circumstances to step to the front and lead the team, and be very visible, very proactive, and occasionally forceful with the leadership style. There have been other times where the complete opposite is needed. The team need to step to the front. We need to lead as a team, not as an individual, and we need to let everybody in the business, show some leadership skills. Leadership it's not a pyramid where it's just one person or one or two people. It's got to be a leadership culture, and all the staff have got a role to play. So I think it's been really situational, and that's maybe one of the biggest learnings. I used to think that leadership was just one thing. It's just one way of doing it, and that always works. And probably the single biggest thing I've learned is that will work sometimes in some situations for a period of time, and other times you need to change your approach and you need to do it differently because that's what's required in this situation at this time for this approach, which we as a team have definitely learned the hard way, and it's definitely how we think about it now. I found it very difficult to let other people lead in the business. I still find it difficult. People still don't move fast enough. They still don't make quick enough decisions. They still don't make sometimes good enough decisions. I'm naturally quite controlling. I'm naturally quite driven. I can be a bit of a handful sometimes. So it's been very difficult for me to sort of step back and let other people lead, which has been probably the single biggest challenge for me, and at times the business. I become the bottleneck regularly. I like to have my nose in everything. I like to know what's going on. There are times in the business life cycle where I have been the bottleneck to everything. Some of that has been because I haven't let other people get on with it. So I always want to sort of have sign off or have involvement, and I think there's times where you've just got to let people do. You've got to create teams within the teams and let people make decisions and show judgment, and you have to let that play out. And sometimes they might get that wrong, and that's still okay. And actually, you need to do that because people need to learn, and you need to see what people have got, and and very few things are case critical, right? If you get that decision wrong, doesn't matter. We all learn from it, and we move on, and we move on better. If you create these artificial environments where nobody's doing anything and nobody makes mistakes, well, nobody learns and nobody gets better. So then, of course, it's always on you, and you're always the bottleneck. So you'll sort of look around and go, "Why am I king of the idiots?" You think you've mistakenly think that you're the only person that is capable of making those decisions and making those judgments, and that's just simply not true unless you're hiring the wrong people. So I think that's been a critical evolution in what we're doing. In terms of practically speaking, I think one of the things I have definitely got much better at is just planning and do review. Be that weekly, monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually, and having a structure and a cadence around reviewing what we're doing, putting some planning forward, and then allowing people to do their bit, and then we go through that cycle. Days gone by, we probably have winged it a little bit. We haven't been as structured. We haven't been as clear. It's created lots of confusion. And then, the natural instinct is to take the reins back, and then you become the bottleneck. I think it's completely natural for people who run businesses, certainly the ones that are like ours, to doubt themselves as a leader. Can I do this? Can I be arsed with this? Is my temperament cut out for this? Because I think one of the things that I've learned and maybe come to accept is that as a leader within the business, you see things earlier than everybody else. Be that cultural, where it's not things aren't culturally where you want them to be, or you've got sort of softness with investors, or you can see market shifts, or you can see commercial swings in the wrong direction, and you have to sort of sit with all of those things before they become obvious to everybody else, and sometimes they come, and that comes at you from different directions. So I think it's completely normal sometimes to feel like you're living in a tumble dryer, and I think with that comes, is this who I am and who I want to be, and what I'm cut out for? Leadership can be quite lonely. You have to make decisions sometimes that are unpopular. They're for the good of the business, or for the greater good with the team and the culture, and that can be quite uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be unpopular. People do care. We all care what others think, but sometimes you have to do things, and you've got full rationale and full context. You can't always get that across in the moment at that time. People will make their own judgments. They fill in gaps. There'll always be gaps in your communications when things are moving, and there's lots of moving part. So I think that's probably, and people sometimes make judgments that aren't true. They're assumptions, and I think you just have to get comfortable with the fact that that's how it's going to be. You're going to be unpopular at times. You're going to do things that piss people off, and that's part of the job. Are leaders born or made? The ongoing question, I don't know. I believe that you can learn some aspects of leadership, some leadership traits. I think you can practice certain things that are important with leadership: communication, influence, some technical side of stuff. I think there are some bits of leadership that can be learned, but I also think that a lot of leadership qualities and characters, a lot of, they are innate. So if I had to pick one, I'd say that, you're born. I think there are lots of people that are in leadership positions that aren't natural leaders and maybe don't even realise that they're leading. I think there's this sense that leadership comes from the front. The loudest person, the biggest character, the most magnetic person is the leader. And actually, that's true at times, but there are lots of people, certainly within our business and in teams that I've been involved in, who lead from the back. Or lead from within. They're the sort of the quiet ones that chip away, get on with their job. They are cultural architects, and they are leaders in their own way. And I would say there's more of those in our teams than there are, the sort of the more obvious definition of leadership. And those people are critically important. I think leadership can take very different forms, and very different characters can be really, really good and effective leaders. I think for us at a site level, obviously each site has its own identity, its own culture, its own DNA, if you like, and the people that sort of lead within those sites, the coaches, the managers in particular, are all slightly different. And I think it's really important that you have leadership principles or cultural principles, but if you put the right bums on seats, I think it's just important that you let people lead in their own way, without sort of helicopter managing that and making everybody sound like everybody else. I certainly did that in the beginning. I recruited a lot of people that looked and sounded like me because that was my definition of leadership and what good looked like. And I think over time you realise that actually people can be completely different to you and be as good, if not better, at leading a team or a site, and getting the outcomes that you want without you making them do exactly the things in the way that you would do them. 3 key qualities of a great leader: internal drive, strong communication skills, resilience.